If I had to sum up today's entire video in a single word, it would be pathetic. The person I'm talking about today, I find him pathetic, honestly, and so strikingly unoriginal that his name is basically interchangeable to me. He doesn't exist as a unique concept or presence on the internet. I could make every single point in this video by talking about anybody who happens to be in this group of unfunny, offensive comedians, podcast hosts, the man with the microphone spewing middle grade playground takes about race, gender, orientation, etc. All concepts that he has absolutely no understanding of because he exists outside of discrimination for any of them. And so to explore my disdain for this type of person, of which there are far too many, we will be discussing none other than Andrew Schulz, whose name I may as well have picked out of a hat because there are so many Andrew Schultzes on the internet with 1 million followers. And surely if there's enough room on the internet for an infinite number of mid-podcasts, then I reckon there should be just enough space left for me to point out how egregiously stupid all of this is and all of these people are. But first, welcome. My name is D'Angelo, and I am your professor of gymnastic accounting, which is a very real degree that I definitely do have. Or maybe this is just me broadcasting myself talking in my room like YouTube used to be. And in today's lecture, we're going to be looking at what happens when talking in your room goes a little too far. And we're going to see what kind of person it takes to build an entire career from standing in front of a microphone saying what is essentially nothing at all. So I think the most important framing device for this video is to kind of get the elephant in the room out of the way early. Andrew Schulz is racist. I know I'm on the internet and people get their feelings hurt really easily by that word. I know I'm supposed to say like, oh yeah, he might have said an offensive joke. I don't know if that means he's actually he's racist. It's apparent from this podcast clip that started going viral recently, where you can see so many men with microphones, with these two being guests on the podcast, and this being our friend Andrew. So the conversation turns to black women, and the guests, James and Fuhad, start talking about the black girlfriend effect.
Wait, what is the black girlfriend effect?
This is you don't know about this. Glow up the other culture.
Yeah, so you'll see a guy who's had a black girlfriend, all of a sudden he's got buzz cut, like clean shape up.
So as they explain, this effect is a man glowing up when he gets a black girlfriend, leveling up his drip, magnifying the riz, etc. It's a silly joke, completely harmless, but notice how immediately Andrew has to swoop in and shoot down the idea that a black woman could ever improve somebody's life. Even as they're talking, he's uncomfortable.
They shave their hair because they start losing it. Because they're so stressed being around this black girl complaining about it all the time.
Now, I really want you to analyze the scene that's about to unfold. I almost wish I could get David Attenborough to analyze this, like just these people in their natural habitat. You can see in Andrew's face that he is calculating. He's waiting. He's just repeated the racist stereotype that black women are angry, right? Constantly complaining to the point of causing stress for their partners. And James and Fuhad have a choice. Actually, the same choice that every man is faced with constantly when he's in a room with only men. Am I gonna let this slide? And James and Fuhad have all too predictably decided that yes, they are going to let this slide. So then after sensing zero pushback, Andrew decides to take it a little bit further.
They grow a beard because there's more cushion when they get slapped the
So now this joke has evolved into black women are angry and violent. And Andrew is literally giddy, bouncing up and down like a child who has been given gifts at Christmas. And the gift he's received is complicity. I actually feel like these two look fairly uncomfortable now, but nevertheless, they are still laughing and they say nothing, which allows Andrew to swoop in for the trifecta.
I think the black girlfriend effect, it might be a protective instinct, bro.
You think?
Protective.
Yeah. And that is how an extremely lighthearted joke about guys changing up their style to impress black women got flipped within mere seconds into black women are angry, violent, and men need to be protected from them. And obviously, media literacy is at an all-time low because somehow this entire exchange gets interpreted by millions of people, no less, as comedy. But make no mistake, what you've just witnessed is not skill. This is habit. Being able to exist in an environment where you get zero pushback for so long and constantly pushing the envelope to see what you can get away with. None of this is dependent on any sort of comedic skill. It doesn't take any sort of timing, observation, or intelligence to do that. Even the stereotypes that are being boosted here are old. They're tired. They're as old as time. And so for anyone who wants to say he can't be racist, he's just telling a joke, I would like them to point out where the joke is. I've played the entire exchange front to back, and yet no part of this exchange speaks to any inherent skill as a comedian. But people are laughing, one might say. But they're laughing at black women. That's what no one ever seems to point out in these conversations. Nobody is laughing at Andrew Schulz in this clip. It's 5 men sitting around laughing at black women. That is sort of the context that I feel like a lot of these comedians are missing. You are elaborately setting up all these situations and scenarios in which you can punch down at people, and then you get a whole crowd of people laughing at the people you're talking down to, and you think they're laughing because you have comedic skill. It is pure and utter delusion. And also, it's racist. Even the 2 guests that were laughing admitted it after the fact. Podcast duo sorry for jokes about black women. What a headline.
Andrew was making a joke. I'm not even going to get into specifics. Making a frankly racist joke.
Yeah.
And we were laughing at it.
They then proceed to say that while they know there is no excuse, they were laughing for a reason.
Fight or flight is a real thing. Like, it is, yeah. Fight or flight is a real thing. When you're in there, you're in shock.
You're in shock, and all you want to do is move on.
So they had to laugh because they were in shock. And listen, laughing out of discomfort is a very real thing that I do far too often for my own liking, frankly. But you guys didn't say anything. You didn't so much as side eye, head tilt, hit him with a brother. What did you mean by that? I understand being shocked that someone is being racist right in front of you, though frankly my shock only lasts for like 0.2 seconds at this point. But y'all were not the victims here. You were enabling another person to target black women as the victims. What they really should have said in their apology is, honestly, as a man, it's a lot easier to be James and Fuhad. It takes a lot less effort. It makes things a lot less complicated when you just put up with the bros instead of calling them out. People really hate to be rejected. And when you take that desire for group acceptance and add it to an environment in which there is nobody to call you out and the targets of your rhetoric are absent, that's how you wind up with a headline like podcast duo sorry for jokes about black women. Black women who are quite often left out of these conversations. And so these situations just go on and on and on ad nauseum because not only are people not listening to the black women involved, they're not even talking to them in their apologies.
Y'all did not center black women in that apology. Like, why are y'all so afraid to say black women? Like, our community wouldn't apologize to our community. No, apologize to the black women within your community.
And then you wind up missing really important nuances in the conversations like this.
But let me just talk about this freeze and flight reasoning they've given. Women who have been assaulted will talk about being in a freeze and or flight position, and I just hope that the people who can acknowledge that James and Fuhad froze will also acknowledge and give the same grace to women when women talk about being in freeze and flight mode. I think that's all I want. I think that I can't even verbalize it. This has really exhausted me today.
I think she has verbalized it though quite well. It's exhausting because this type of comedy, and more importantly, the mental gymnastics people do to excuse it, relies on so many double standards and systemic issues that whereas some people can think about it in a vacuum, others cannot. But then what happens when a black woman gets a little too exhausted and she's not verbalizing it in the exact way that people are comfortable with hearing? She gets called angry by people like this. And so as you can see, this isn't just racism we're dealing with here. It's like this really deeply systemic racism designed to infuriate. And it's deeply insecure because he is trying to preemptively call out the black woman for constantly complaining, as he puts it. Or as I would put it, calling out racism. And so that's how I discovered Andrew Schulz, because I saw the BBC article about the podcast duo apologizing. But it turns out that this shtick is Andrew Schultz's MO with everybody, actually. Being racist, getting a whole room of people to laugh at it, and then making it increasingly difficult for people to call out that racism without being perceived as spoiling the fun. But trust me, people are calling it out. Andrew Schultz's anti-Indian rant in front of Indian co-host. I used to be an Andrew fan, but his comedy has turned less making fun and more about getting some deep-rooted stuff out in public, while one or more of the guys around him laugh to give him approval that he's funny. This clearly isn't just a disgruntled fan making things up. This is the exact behavior that happened with James and Fuhad, except this time it happens to be about Indian people. Andrew Schulz, like Russell Peters, takes the mickey out of everyone. Usually quite wittily and with a surprising amount of cultural knowledge. Yes, it takes a lot of culture to lean into the most tired stereotypes of all time. But I see this a lot, actually, as pushback when people do speak up about this. Like, oh, he just makes, he makes fun of everyone. You know what I mean? Like, are you saying he's racist against everyone? Yes. Next, US comedian called out for anti-indigenous racism. So you got black women on TikTok, Indian people in their own subreddit, indigenous folk in the National Indigenous Times, calling the material disgusting, saying it's disgraceful, and anyone applauding this ought to be gravely ashamed. And this has been Andrew's whole gig for years at this point. Netflix goes all in on anti-Asian racism. He was on Netflix in 2019 calling coronavirus the Asian parasite and the Wuhanic plague. Don't tell America to wear masks. Tell China not to infect. I mean, let's be honest, next to squatting to smoke a cigarette, slinging viruses is their favorite thing to do. He then goes on to claim he's not talking about Chinese people, only the Chinese government. Really, Andrew, the Chinese government is squatting to smoke a cigarette? Sounds like something a person would do, but what do I know? I'm just an angry black woman on the internet. But no, jokes aside, I am not a woman. And if I was, I honestly shudder to think how poorly this video would be received, because despite all the criticism, you've got Andrew over here with his 3 million subscribers, who I'm sure would be really happy to jump in and let me know just how wrong I am. And looking at Andrew's channel, you can really see how this is all he has. A gay Mexican serial killer? The Middle East has gay people now? Palestine protests taken over by lesbians? Be careful with Latinas. Interracial couple gets roasted. Like, it doesn't even really matter what he's saying in these clips. What he's doing is extremely deliberate. The most popular piece of content he's ever uploaded is called Albino Says the N-Word. This was never about comedy, it's just about shock, stereotypes, and contextualizing yourself in a way where you can never really get called out for it because you surround yourself with people who laugh. I'm sure the number one pushback I'm gonna get from people on this video is, no, you're calling him racist, but he has this whole podcast with a black man. The brilliant idiots. But has it occurred to you that I do not care? This isn't a sign of anything other than Charlemagne's willingness to put up with Andrew. And Andrew really seems to have bought into this idea of like a pass from the black community. Even the way he talks is so deliberately put on. Like, just listen and you'll see exactly what I mean.
Can you make sure she was strong enough to do it? That's a heavy door. Let's not play games. Come on now. That was a good ad. That's a Mexican right there. Only a Mexican could whistle like a bluebird. That was incredible.
Come on now. That's a Mexican right there. That was a good whistle. Like, Andrew, why are you speaking like this? Why have you affected this tone when this is how you actually speak?
Yeah, they were putting this version of stand-up out there that just wasn't that funny. And it was just like super cookie cutter, very polite, very kind of like woke, not ruffling any feathers. And I just always found things funnier that were a little bit maybe darker, twisted, devil's advocate-y. Like, what's the worst thing that I can defend in a comedic way?
I actually find that a lot of comedians do this and people are just shockingly okay with it. Where they get up on that stage and it's like, shoot, you're hearing a completely different person. And it's like, you just code switched from white to white with extra steps. What do you mean? Unless you think I'm just reaching or grasping at straws, this is something that thousands of people have acknowledged. When Andrew appeared on Joe Rogan's podcast, which we'll get to in a second, one of the top comments said, Joe should have scheduled a black guy to come on halfway through so we could have 2 hours of white Schultz and 2 hours of black Schultz. It is so very obvious, regardless of whether people want to see it or not. I kind of love his appearance here on the Joe Rogan podcast because it really just exposes how when you take away the racism, the offensive material, Andrew Schulz doesn't have an original thought in that head of his.
Orangutan is stabbing fish while hanging from a tree like this. They figured out how to use tools.
So if, whoa, this is actually interesting. So if we're watching them in their Stone Age, it's completely plausible that some other life form is watching us in our advanced state of evolution.
He does this so often where he'll just say the most obvious statement that even a 12-year-old could have surmised. And then he'll just lean back like, wow, I really just did that. Off the dome.
Imagine we lived through the time where I couldn't get in touch with you unless you were home and could hear your phone.
Yeah.
And we could also live in a time where I could instantaneously be at your house.
Yeah. In the same life. Yeah.
Have you ever seen a grown man so stupid it makes you want to cry? And when Joe Rogan fans are unanimously calling you out, you know you've messed something up. Andrew's the type of guy who finishes your sentence and now that's his idea. He's the type of guy to ask questions he thinks he already knows the answer to. The exact type of guy that thinks comedians are modern day philosophers. But it's not just commenters who call him out for his Schulz epiphanies. These are things that are so easy to see through. Even a fellow comedian called him out to his face at one point. This is one of the rare instances where you're going to see Andrew Schulz receive feedback that is anything other than forced laughter.
I have everything I need and I'm not happy as angst.
Feel.
Whoa.
I love Schulz
What are
epiphanies.
you talking about?
Schulz epiphanies are my favorite. He repeats a statement. He's like,
That's crazy though.
This podcast crew definitely lets him just go on his philosophy talks for way too long. And the fact that they laughed at him when Shane said that just shows they agree. Good episode though. Not even this man's fans can take him seriously at this point. Like truly, who does he have left? And actually, speaking of Shane Gillis, I'm not really very familiar with him, but I did find it very interesting that in this very same podcast episode, he actually does the only thing I've ever wanted to see happen to any of these podcast bros with their microphones and their comedy specials. Shane Gillis calls Andrew Schulz unfunny to his face, and Andrew's reaction is genuinely incredible to me. It really just confirms every suspicion I had about him, which is that, again, when you take away all of the nonsense, there is absolutely nothing there. He has no legs to stand on. So for context, they pull up this picture of this lifter with Down syndrome who they're comparing to Shane.
Hold on.
That's crazy.
Oh my God.
Bro, you look good.
What you're about to see is one of the deepest clips on the internet, because in real time, you're going to see a man in this all-man environment go through the calculations, run the numbers, and try to figure out what will happen if he actually says something. The thing that never happens.
I just want to hear the sound.
It's a Sue. It's a
And then, by golly, he actually says something.
Nah, you look great, dog. Congrats.
I don't think that's funny.
But yeah, I see that. I see why.
Like you don't get it, you mean?
Immediately flipping this into, oh, you just don't understand it. Like, watch in real time as this entire podcast of guys just starts crumbling into middle school.
I don't understand it.
Yeah.
I don't get the joke. What are you saying?
Yeah, it's okay, dude. It's okay.
Realizing in real time that this is in fact middle school behavior and you can opt out of it is just so fascinating to me to watch. Again, David Attenborough, where are you?
How old are you guys?
Say what?
38, dude.
Oh, wow.
38.
You guys act young as though. You guys, what are you guys, 18?
Also, Andrew Schulz is 40, by the way. Like, actually 40. Like, on God, unironically born in 1983, 40. Like, older than Shane Gillis, 40. What are you doing with your life, my guy? What is any of this? How are you cool with this being your internet presence? I'm sure someone will ask, what does his age have to do with it? It has everything to do with it. This guy is stuck. You want to be black, you'll never be black. You want to be a cool kid, that ship has sailed. You are the cool kid's dad at this point. And this like inauthentic, fake, forced nonsense that has wormed its way into his entire shtick. It's so indicative of Andrew Schulz just being the worst type of comedian, aka a storyteller with no story to tell.
By the way,
That's wow.
these guys are awesome. They're having fun.
Yeah.
For you guys to sit here and be like,
Wait a minute.
let's bring it up and mock them. That's up, dude. That's a dude.
We're mocking
By
you.
using them as an insult.
This is you back in your victim thing.
No, I'm not being a victim. I'm saying the jokes you're doing is not. It's not like.
It's not PC.
That's not cool.
You know what's really great?
Triggering.
You're triggered. It's not PC. You don't get it. You're being a victim. Within seconds, these people have turned into caricatures. All Shane had to do was sit there and say, this isn't funny. This feels mean. And they lost it. It's a wrap. If there's just one thing I really want to leave you with, it's the fact that under no circumstances should this man ever be called funny.
If Hot to a Girl goes down on Mr. Beast and shows what she can actually do, I think that's 1 billion views. What we need to do is see if Chris can still get his son. We need to see if Chris got the Mr. Beast left in him. We need to see if Chris got the bow wow yippee yo yippee yay. Where my dogs at? Bark with me now.
Yeah, we're calling this person a comedian. Great. And you know, it must be a bit of a tortured existence seeing all these people calling you a comedian while knowing deep down that you are in fact just a one-trick, 2D, unfunny, fake deep, fake voice, no poise, overrated, thinks I hate it, spineless, racist, mindless, tasteless, born in 83 Gen Z wannabe who mistook TikTok for talent and is now killing comedy one brain cell at a time. Respectfully. But that's my take on the situation. Dave's take on the situation is that maybe the fact that Andrew finds himself funny does have a comedic value that is just completely separate from Andrew's lack of skill. And I'm of course excited to hear your take. I mean, this is the part of the video where a layman would ask you to subscribe, like the video, and leave a comment, but I will ask you to enroll, evaluate the video, and submit your feedback. Because I am of course running a 100% completely, totally, all the way, okay, maybe not really, unaccredited university. Probably. Just ask anybody in the student body and they'll confirm it for you. We're totally legit. And as for me, whether you'll see me in 24 hours or 24 months is honestly anyone's guess, but until then, thanks for watching. Your homework for today is to write a joke. That's it. Just write a joke. Do something that Andrew could never do.